Mineirão, officially Estádio Governador Magalhães Pinto, established in 1965 in Belo Horizonte, is the largest football stadium in the state of Minas Gerais, Brazil. It served as a venue in the 2013 FIFA Confederations Cup and the 2014 FIFA World Cup. In addition, it will also host some matches of the football tournament of the 2016 Summer Olympics. History, background. The project to construct the Mineirão predated the stadium's opening by more than 25 years. In the 1940s, a modest movement began, involving managers, entrepreneurs, athletes and journalists. The idea was to build a field in Belo Horizonte commensurate with the evolution of Minas Gerais football up to that point. The top three teams in the state capital had their stadiums, but they were cramped, uncomfortable and no longer supported the demand of fans. Stadium Untitled de Lima, of Arma Copyright Rica. Antonio Carlos Stadium, of Attribution. And Juscelino Kubitschek Stadium, of Cruzeiro did not support more than 10,000 spectators. Attribution, the team with the wealthiest members in Belo Horizonte, planned to build a stadium for 30,000 people, after the winning the Brazilian Champion of Champions title, in 1937. It nearly went out of paper. But then they found a huge debt of the club, forcing the directors to allot and sell the properties that the club had in the neighborhood where the stadium would be built, Antonio Carlos Avenue, near the airport. At the end of the 1940s, journalist Canacima minejˈɾhtho achieved with CBD the inclusion of Belo Horizonte as one of the venues of 1950 FIFA World Cup. For this, the council would have to build a stadium at the height of the event. Official agreement was signed by Mayor Mineirão de Lima and the president of the CBD, Rivado Via Mayor. The modest club seat de Setembro was in charge of commanding the works of the new field. The construction of Independência Stadium was slow and it seemed that would not be completed in time for the World Cup. But with the intervention of the CBD and FIFA, the city of Belo Horizonte took charge of construction, and the stage was handed over in time for the match between Yugoslavia and Switzerland on June 25, 1950, even with many improvisations. But soon the initial excitement for the new stadium was falling apart, since the 30,000 seats available did not meet the growing number of fans. Independência was uncomfortable for the audience, and did not offer good conditions for the press. The early 1950s saw the first steps supporting the construction of a larger stadium in Belo Horizonte. Under the leadership of Gilcar Copyright Zamora Debut, a group of students from the School of Engineering at Universidade Federal de Minas Gerais proposed the construction of a university stadium, to be located in the city's Pampulha region, where the university owned land. In 1956 the chairman of Minas Gerais Football Federation, Francisco de Castro Cortes proposed the construction of a municipal stadium on a location adjacent to the BR-040 highway, close to where BH Shopping Mall stands today. The proposal asked for funds to be obtained through the sales of perpetual seating rights. With the support of the president, former Minas Gerais Governor Juscelino Kubitschek, Cortes even arranged for engineers involved in the construction of Mineirão to come to Belo Horizonte and review the project. At the time, Antonio Abreu was president of the Regional Sports Council in Minas Gerais, and became one of the strongest supporters of what was destined to become Mineirão. Abreu demonstrated impractical aspects of the project supported by Cortes, which was eventually abandoned in favor of a new project for the current stadium. The new project was prepared under the auspices of a team led by Benedicto Adami de Carvalho. In recognition of Abreu-Carão's role in proposing a feasible financial arrangement, selecting the venue, and assistance in drafting a state assembly bill paving the way for the construction of Mineirão, in 1966 his name was officially designated to the avenue where the stadium is located, that is Avenida Antonio Abreu-Carão. Once the design started to become a reality, then State Representative Jorge Carunfilho was assigned the mission of drafting the State Assembly bill that would help turn Mineirão a reality. The idea was to obtain funding through the state lottery, whose tickets would carry a 10% earmark toward a stadium building fund. Estádio Minas Gerais was then created under State Bill 1947 dated August 12, 1959, which was signed into law by Governor José Copyright Francisco Bias Fortes. The law also provided for the creation of AEMG, an administrative tasked with managing the finished stadium. AEMG would later become ADEMG. Modifications to the original University Stadium were left to architects Eduardo Mendes Guimara Poundes and Gaspar Garatu, with the goal of upgrading it from a 30,000 visitors venue into a new giant stadium capable of accommodating up to 100,000 visitors. The chosen site was located in the Pampulha region, in land owned by UFMG, whose president Pedro Paulo Penido was favorable to the project while expecting construction of Mineirão at the site of UFMG's new campus would attract an influx of people into this sparsely populated area. With the approval of President Kibitsch's Education Minister Cláudio Salgado, an agreement between UFMG and AEMG was signed on February 25, 1960. Construction of Mineirão then finally began. Construction. When they began work on the stadium in 1959, engineers and workers were not sure they would be completed. Cesar Gil, the construction manager, faced financial crises, but knew how to use politics in favor of Mineirão. Despite the extreme control of spending, the works were facing, at each step, the depletion of resources. The initial loan of 100 million minejˈრʰ evaporated in implementing the first service of its foundation. For a year and a half, the contract followed a slow pace, working with limited equipment and staffing minimum. While one group acted politically to change laws that enable the acquisition of resources and also convinced the governor Magalhães Pinto fund the construction, AEMG trying to adapt to the fragile financial situation. The new stadium was raised to the emblem for the national engineering by offering countless examples of evolution in construction. The team of engineers Mineirão went to the extreme in the details. Passed the Maracana pound by a real X-ray, finding weaknesses that should not be repeated in the Mineirão field. In 1964, Gil Cesar sought in Tokyo, where arenas were built for Olympics, news about this type of work. Traders noted features and engineering innovations. Worried by the quality of the grass, tags and other minutiae. The big question that engineers and workers were tested for their ability to perform a superstructure a false ellipse, measuring the major axis of 275 meters and the lowest 217 meters using conventional equipment. To evaluate and eliminate uncertainties, we designed a mini Mineirão, called the Experimental Sector 15, where a link bleachers and roof would be subjected to all sorts of evidence. Concrete plants, conveyors, degrees, loaders and shuttle were tested. The complexity of the work required iron bars into lengths that the industry was unable to attend. The solution came in the actual construction site, where engineers and workers solder used to promote the extension of the bars. With available resources could be hiring more people, but bumped into AEMG lack of qualified staff. Made a public bidding for the supply of labor, it was found to be unenforceable, because the price charged €15 million minejˈρʰ was infinitely high box for the administration of the new field. It was proved in the future, the amount requested by the companies would build a Mineirão and a half. On accountability, the Gigante da Pampulha consumed a total of $10 million. Due to the lack of skilled labor available, AEMG promoted the training of masons, carpenters, ship owners and other professionals. Whole classes were formed, and hundreds of workers have gained qualifications to perform special functions. At this stage, the administration managed to gather the required number needed to play and work at a fast pace. Between August 1964 and July 1965, the building jumped from one sector to offer the country's most modern stadium in the world. To speed construction and shorten the drama of the budget, Gil Cesar launched the operation 24 hours a day, divided into 3 shifts, 3,000 workers hired. The service did not stop a single minute. A kayak at the top of the building in downtown Belo Horizonte, saw a huge flash of light coming from the sides of the future Mineirão. The administration began to reward teams for production and creativity, encouraging competition among the various sectors of the construction. The idea of local little game was so successful that many fronts have been completed well before the deadline. The full-time process allowed the stadium to be handed to the population in 8 months. Even in the hectic pace and pressure, only one worker died during the entire construction of the arena. On February 25, 1960, the government of the Union and the Federal University of Minas Gerais gave Minas Gerais land in the neighborhood of Pampulha, Belo Horizonte, for the construction of the stadium. The Mineirão was planned by Eduardo Mendes Guimarães Jr. and Caspar Garatu, both architects. The structural project was undertaken by engineer Arthur Hugo Niemeyer German. The construction workmanship was directed by engineer Gil Cesar Moreira de Abreu. From 1963 to the date of its inauguration on September 5, 1965, approximately 5,000 people were involved in the construction. The festivities marking the opening of the stadium included parachute jumpers, music, and an inaugural football match. The events were attended by 73,201 people. The inaugural match at Mineirão Stadium was played by the Minas Gerais state team and the Argentinian team, River Plate. Attendance: the largest attendance of the stadium was 132,834 people in 1997 in the match between Cruzeiro and Vila Nova in the final match of the State League. In this match, women and children did not pay, as was usual on that time for games played in the stadium. The paying attendance was 74,857, and there were 56,618 women and children who entered for free. For safety reasons, the capacity of Mineirão had been reduced for the majority of its 40 years of history. In 2004, by imposition of FIFA, the capacity of the stadium was reduced to 72,000 people. Since the stadium opening, 3 important teams in Belo Horizonte have hosted their matches in Mineirão: Atlético Mineiro, Cruzeiro and Alma Copyright Rica. Mineirão has also hosted matches of the Brazilian national team. The most important trophies won by local teams on Mineirão's pitch were, Supercopa Sudamericana Euro 1991, Brazilian Cup Euro 1993, 2000, 2003, Copa Libertadores Euro 1997, 2013, Campeonato Brasileiro ZAR Copyright RIAA Euro 2003, 2013. One of the most remarkable matches played in the stadium was in 1969 when Clube Atlético Mineiro played against the Brazilian team, which went on to become unbeaten champion of the World Cup in 1970. Atlético scored in the first half with Amori, and Pela drew the game at the beginning of the second half. Dada Maravilha was the player that scored the winning goal for Atlético, in the middle of the second half. This was the only defeat of Brazil in that period. Other one was in 1966, when Cruzeiro played against Santos, which also had Pela on their squad. Cruzeiro took control of the first half and went into half-time with a 5-0 lead. In the second half, Santos tried a reaction, but in vain. Dirceu Lopes scored his hat-trick and settled the score on 6-2. For Cruzeiro scored ZAR Copyright Eduardo, Dirceu Lopes, Natal, Tosta. Santos scored with Danilo Guerreiro. The stadium top scorer is Reinaldo, who played for Atlético Mineiro from 1973 to 1984 and swung the nets 144 times. On the other hand, Tosta played from 1965 to 1972, scored 143 goals and had the best year average. 2013 FIFA Confederations Cup, 2014 FIFA World Cup, 2016 Summer Olympics. Important matches: first match, friendly Euro September 5, 1965 Euro Minas Gerais state team won Euro Club Atlético River Plate attendance, 73,201, first international match, friendly Euro September 7, 1965 Euro Brazil 3 Euro 0 Uruguay. In this match, All the players who represented the Brazil were Palmeiras players. First derby, Minas Gerais State Championship October 24, 1965 minejÄɾฉิ่ 1 0 Atla Copyright Tico, Greatest Defeat of Brazil, Semi-final of World Cup July 8, 2014, Germany 7-1 Brazil, Historical goals scored in Mineirão. Goal number 1, Bugler, from Minas Gerais State Team on September 5, 1965. Goal number 1000, Lola, from Atla Copyright Tico Mineirão, on April 6, 1968. Goal number 5000, Paulinu, from Vila Nova, on March 10, 1985. Concerts, Mineirão has been the venue to scarce music events since its opening date. Diante do Trono, Preciso de Ti, July 15, 2001, Kiss Creatures of the Night Tour, June 23, 1983, The Rasmus September 12, 2006, Black Eyed Peas September 12, 2006, Elton John 40th anniversary of The Rocket Man, March 9, 2013, ARCSA Copyright Brazil April 12 to 14, 2013, Paul McCartney Out There Tour, May 4, 2013, BMK Copyright The Mrs. Carter Show World Tour, September 11, 2013, Black Sabbath Black Sabbath Reunion Tour, October 15, 2013, musical event. The record audience outside a football match was on July 15, 2001 in recording the album Preciso de Ti of Brazilian worship music group Diante do Trono, where more than 210,000 people welcome gifts were recorded from various regions the country and also from other countries at the stadium for the event. References. ADEMG Administrao Picavolt O dos Estadios de Minas Gerais, http www.ademgmg.gov.br Index PHP Option equals com Content and view equals article and it equals 76 and item it equals 83, Terra Esports, Almanac do Cruzeiro, http BDFBRASILESPECIAL Blogspot.com 101965 So Palmeiras Brazil HTML, http www.benny75cantaka66/Primeiro HTML, Bolinal area, external links images, official website, stadium picture, stadium guide article, FIFA profile.